This is Daniel Sheehan from Ringwalk TV. Delighted to be joined by Alex Gavel or Alex LG, depending on how easy that is to say for you. Head of Community Development at Matchroom Boxing, currently in a show in Ghana, in Africa. First of all, Alex, how are you, mate?
Very good, mate. Very good. I'm nice and cool now. It's a little bit warmer outside, but the aircon in the room, I'm sort of I'm hibernating a little bit in here, so I'm all good. I'm not melting for once.
That's great, great to hear. And obviously, like we say, you're in Ghana. It's been I hear a wild few days. What's the atmosphere been like around the event? What is a couple of days out now?
Oh, honestly, like the energy here, I came out here not really knowing what to expect, but I sort of had high hopes for what, the kind of vibes and energy that the locals would bring. And honestly, it surpassed anything. Like we did a huge community event yesterday at the Book and Boxing Arena in like the heartland of Jamestown, where I think they've had five former world champions from this, a really kind of deprived area of the city. And they all turned out like, with drums, trumpets, everything. At the face off yesterday, we had people with like what looked like pots and pans turning up, running around and kind of like creating these sort of makeshift percussion instruments while the face-offs were happening. Honestly, it's phenomenal. Anyone that wants to experience boxing in Africa, like this place is unbelievable.
100%. Yeah, we've seen Africa putting on a good amount of shows recently. What does being in a place like Ghana sort of highlight for you about boxing's global reach and, just beyond the fights itself, going towards these new territories, these new environments that haven't really
It's,
been touched by
it's
loads of boxing
huge.
before?
Yeah, you can just see like we do these, the community events I've organised all over the world really, and what we did yesterday was very similar to an event we did in Philadelphia recently with Boots Ennis, like a community public workout, with an element of the fighters doing a workout, and then also the community getting involved, getting the kids in the ring with the fighters, all that kind of thing. And it's amazing because it was a very different vibe, obviously, like it's completely different culture, but also there's a lot of similarities. You can still see the same smiles on the kids' faces. You can still see the impact that boxing has on these people, bringing everyone together. And I was speaking to people about just the beauty of sport and how sport has taken me around the world. Like I was fortunate enough to go on like rugby tours with my school to Australia, New Zealand, South Africa with cricket. I'm now here in Ghana with boxing. I've been to Philadelphia, I've been to Japan. Like it's all through sport. So sport opens up doors for young people of all ages to make new friends and just connect with new people, learn new cultures. It's fascinating just to see the smiles on the kids' faces. When they met Craig, Dan, Leo Atang, who's absolutely, he's like, he's just absolutely loving this whole experience. It's been amazing. So a big thanks to all the fighters for getting involved yesterday. And yeah, I've had loads of kids from Ghana who kind of like found me on Instagram somehow, and they're all like, "Where are you coming to my gym? Are you going to come down?" They all want some Everlast gloves. They all want this stuff. So it's been amazing. Like what an incredible experience.
100%. That sounds like everybody wants a piece of it. No, like you say, head of community development at Matchroom Boxing. For those who don't quite understand what that means and what is your role, would you mind giving a little brief rundown of what it is you do at Matchroom and in your wider role?
Yeah, of course. So my role at Matchroom, I'm the lucky one really that gets to go and engage with all the local communities in and around the event. So we go to these incredible cities all over the world, but it's all well and good putting on incredible events and great fights. That's the nuts and bolts of what Matchroom do. But we want to leave a legacy behind in these communities, and all the kind of the profile that these events bring and the resources that we have with our fighters, and even financially as well. We want to make sure that as the world's truly global boxing promoter and the biggest promoter in the world, we want to make sure that the grassroots are being supported, and it's my role, it's my responsibility to make sure that we do that. So before I started, I used to work for England Boxing before I joined Matchroom, and as many people know, I kind of got into this via my mate Kieran Conway, who sort of opened the doors, going on all these crazy shows all over the world. And I pitched what is my role now to Frank when I was in Dallas, at the it was Canelo Billy Joe Saunders fight. Saw him in the lobby of the hotel, and I was like, do you know what? Like I observed from afar that Matchroom were doing bits and pieces, with community type initiatives. They'd maybe, I don't know, fund some bags for a new gym, or they do whatever. But then in a couple of years, those bags need replacing, and there was no real strategy behind things. So the gap in the market that I saw was that actually we need to have a strategy behind this. We can make a real impact, but we just need a focus. And it's my role to make sure that we are focused on that. Building things in the UK, but obviously I'm here in Ghana now. I've been doing a lot of work in the US, in Philadelphia, San Francisco, those kind of areas. And just yeah, as I say, just expanding globally, and the impact of boxing is being seen for a lot more people.
100%. You mentioned your time at England boxing there. You spent some time working in grassroots boxing. What, from your experience, have you seen as the main challenges that sort of communities face when they're trying to access and sort of sustain having sport and pushing it forward?
I think if I was to focus on one thing, I would say that it's boxing clubs having the right skills and expertise to be able to unlock and access funding. So sometimes, a boxing coach, rightly so, is incredible at the coaching side of things. A boxing coach is far more than just the person holding the pads and coaching the kids. They're often a counsellor. They're a role model that maybe they don't have at home. They fill so many different roles for these young people, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be the best person for writing a funding application or to write a business plan or think about more the kind of nuts and bolts of what a boxing club is essentially a business. If you think about it, any sports club is. So quite often those clubs don't have those the right kind of people in those sort of roles. And a big part of what we want to do at Matchroom and what we are doing with our partners at Empire Fighting Chance is plugging that gap. So with Empire, they've built up a network of boxing clubs, and together with us at Matchroom now, we're up to 56 clubs. By the end of 3 years, that'll be over 100 clubs, all doing incredible things for boxing in the community. And as that grows and develops, Empire help the clubs by providing their blueprint of how they've built this incredible internationally sort of recognised facility in Bristol. They give them all the secrets. There's no strings attached. Literally, like they'll tell them everything, how they've done it. They give them that blueprint, and then the other thing with the network is it's not just about Empire as the kind of parent organization. Some of the other organizations as part of that network are now doing such incredible things. So let's say there's a boxing club that's struggling with maintaining their facility, or they need help with a particular type of funding application. Out of those 56 clubs that's soon going to expand, there's likely to have been a club that's gone through exactly the same thing. So it's building this kind of like camaraderie and sense of community amongst those clubs. So yeah, we're doing some really great things. And also the other thing we're doing is collecting a lot of data around the work that those clubs do that then we can feed back into government, so that, it's not just telling these amazing stories of what boxing does in communities, which we can obviously do with our content team, Alex Haynes and the guys. But it's also underpinning that with data and statistics that we can give to Eddie, and who can sell the benefits of boxing any better than Eddie Hearn. So he can tell the stories, and then we give him the data, and then we unlock change. So that's what it's all about.
100%. Obviously, you mentioned back in 2021, the Canelo Saunders sort of time, you were pitching this sort of role, that how it's evolved now to Frank at the time. You haven't really seen many things like that. I'm thinking about the sort of promoters, going on right now. I don't see this sort of thing happening for other promoters in the space. Do you think this is something that sort of differentiates Matchroom and puts them on a different level?
Yeah, definitely. I think the thing with Matchroom is we're always innovating. We're always looking to be one step ahead of everyone else. And I think that, I certainly don't want to blow my own trumpet at all, but I think what I'm doing with Matchroom in terms of the community work is kind of blazing a trail really for what a lot of promoters could and should be doing. I always say to people that when anyone mentions about, other promoters and the work they do in the community, honestly, everyone should be doing it. Everyone should be doing more. It's cool. We'll just do it the best. Like that's what Matchroom do, right? So we will continue to do this amazing work. As the more people that get behind this type of work, incredible, because the bigger the light that's shone on grassroots community boxing, the more chance we've got of unlocking greater funding for it. More resources, and ultimately it will make the sport better. So yeah, as I say, it's everyone should be doing more. We'll just do it the best, and we've got the right strategy. I know all the right partners. We're working with Empire, we're working with Street Games, we're now working with some incredible people in the States. Yeah, we're doing some really cool stuff, and it's honestly it's a pleasure to be kind of at the forefront of driving this. And I'm always very grateful for the opportunity that Frank gave me, and obviously the backing of Eddie. Barry's been incredible since I joined, and a huge advocate for the work that I do, and for people like that to back your work, it's truly an honor. So
100%. You speak about the sort of the mad journeys you've been on, the places it's took you around the world since you started a few years ago. Is there a project or an initiative that really sticks out to you in that time you've been working on this?
The one that's going to unlock change is the stuff we do with Empire, and I think the thing that's going on at the moment, the thing that really excites me is we do this amazing stuff in the UK, and then it's these kind of trips when I go to places that I never thought I would go. Like I was joking with people saying, on my 2025 bingo card, I didn't think I'd be in Accra, Ghana a week before Christmas. Like, it's incredible. You never quite know where you're going to end up, and to do this type of work and to come to these types of countries, and it's using all the experiences that we built up. As I said, the event yesterday was based on something I did in Philadelphia. So it's, and then that event was based on a few things that I've done in the UK. So kind of similar to an event I did at the AO Arena with around one of the Jack Casserole fights. So it's kind of doing what we do in the UK and then getting a little bit more ambitious and working with local partners in then America and then here in Ghana, and then how we can just, how we can build that. So I wouldn't say necessarily there's one thing that I'd focus on, but it's the empire work and how we're looking to take that to America to then, I believe, change the sport in America, because there's a huge gap in the market there. In America, as crazy as it is, it's such a big country. They don't have the sort of they don't have someone like me when I was at England Boxing who'd help clubs on the ground with funding, with facilities, with all that kind of with project-based work. They just don't have it. So I think for America, the work we're doing with Empire, we could actually plug that gap, and we're very close to doing it. We want to start in Philadelphia, as you know, the great fighting city it is, the Rocky stories, Joe Frazier, Bernard Hopkins, all this kind of amazing work. If we can make it work in Philly, then we can expand across the country, and we can, I believe, transform the sport. So it's incredibly exciting. But yeah, there's always stuff going on. I'll tell you one that's really exciting at the moment as well, because it's fresh in my mind. I had so yesterday, I obviously had my event here in Ghana, but on Tuesday we had Ishmael Davis, who I've recently linked Ishmael up with a charity called Three Pillars, who work with ex-offenders and mainly young people that are either in prison or a young offenders unit. And Ishmael, obviously, a lot of people know his story. He spent time in prison. He's had a bit of a checkered past, but he's truly reformed through boxing. And he's a great, great guy, and he's really willing to give back and change other people's lives, and show them that how boxing's changed his life. So he went into a prison in Staffordshire called HMP Dovegate and delivered the first session with Three Pillars. And it's that type of work where we can use our fighters and the platform that we have to it is going to change people's lives. It might be that one hook. Someone may be struggling during their time in prison. Someone like Ish comes in with his British and Commonwealth title belts, and they just think, do you know what, like he was in a cell the same as me, and now look at him. So it might be that one little hook that changes, that sort of captures their attention and could really do something positive for them. So yeah, it's that kind of thing that again is very exciting.
And when you're going into these gyms and you're meeting these coaches and these young people, do they ever ask you sort of, what for any advice as to how they can get involved, how they can push things forward in their own community or in their own gyms? What advice would you have for people who want to help out and push these community initiatives forward?
I think it's always just be willing to collaborate with people. Sometimes boxing gyms can be a little bit like kind of insular, and they want to just focus on what they're doing. I think the sport would benefit from a more collaborative approach. I'm from Northampton. It's a big rugby town, and I always found that when I was growing up playing rugby, a lot of there was rivalries between clubs, but also everyone worked together. And I think that boxing would benefit from that. Another previous role, I worked for Northamptonshire Sport, and I worked with 16 different national governing bodies, and that's where I first got into working boxing, probably 10, 12 years ago. And that's where the journey began, really. But when I was working with those sports, I worked with golf, I worked with bowls, I worked with judo, I worked with rugby union, tennis, all these different things. And I never really found with those sports that there was this, there's rivalry, yes, but there's never this kind of like sense that, we just stay in our own lane and we just do what we're doing and we don't really work with others. I would say that's a little bit of an issue sometimes with boxing. Not always. I mean, Belfast is a place where I've always found when we go there, the boxing clubs, they're just incredible how they all work together. And it's even more incredible when you consider the history of the city and how divided it was over in past times. So I think that there's examples of where clubs work together really well, but that would be one thing that I'd pinpoint where, just be willing to take on new ideas. This is what we're doing with the Empire work, you see. We're bringing clubs together, and it's building this kind of like sense of collaboration and sense of community, and then ultimately together you're always stronger. If you're just like an island, then it's difficult. But if you're part of this huge community backed by Matchroom, then ultimately you are going to be successful. So yeah, it's great to bring more clubs on board, and I'm excited to see what the future will hold for all of those clubs.
For sure. And you see sometimes fans from the outside who aren't particularly, like, I don't know, clued up in the industry a little bit. There might be a little bit of skepticism from the outside in terms of seeing a big promoter doing a community events, and they might think, oh, are they just doing sort of box ticking exercise or anything like that? Does that ever sort of come into consideration of, making sure things are authentic and genuine and making a big impact?
100%. I think that's the biggest challenge. Like, people always look at it and go, oh, it's just a PR thing. And that's fine. Like, an element of it is, it's going to always be good PR if Matchroom are going out and supporting community boxing, activations, clubs. It will be, but it's far more than that. And I think it's a little bit of a sort of lazy assessment to just go, oh, it's a PR thing. Like, it really isn't. That's why I'm in my post. It would have been a PR thing if I wasn't here because there'd be no strategy behind it. It would just be, oh, let's go to a gym, let's take some cameras down, let's hand some gloves out, let's give them a t-shirt. Like, that's great. That is great. And those moments are inspirational for the kids. And it might be that hook to change their lives. But when you layer it with strategic work and we're not just going to visit a gym, we're then supporting that club long term in terms of business planning, in terms of funding, in terms of all these different things that will unlock change. That's what it's about. So, anyone that ever wants to say, oh, it's a PR thing, you're very welcome to. And I've had it a few times, like people have made comments on social media and stuff. And then it was quite funny. This guy, he used to sort of, you get the odd like troll who sort of like puts things online. It's cool. Like, I think he said, oh yeah, he was saying something around it's like a PR thing, it's this, that, the other. And then have Matchroom ever funded this, that, the other? And I was like, well, actually. And then I basically just went down and just like dropped knowledge bombs on exactly what it is. This is the amount of money. This is how we funded it. And in the end, he literally had nothing to say. So it was quite nice it was quite a good feeling just because I know that we have an answer for absolutely everything. And I know the work that we're doing. And I think ultimately, if anyone isn't sure of that over time, they'll become more aware because the more success that we have, the more stuff we're doing with government, the more stuff we're doing around the world, that we're going to get so much exposure for it that people will just be aware that it's just so much more than that. So yeah, it does get said, but it is what it is.
Yeah, no, definitely making a fantastic impact. And just a final one for you, Alex, really. When people look back on your work in say 10 years or something to come, what do you hope they sort of say as to how you helped change and brought about change within the communities?
It's difficult because do you know what? It's really difficult with Matchroom. Working at Matchroom to look forward to things is
Always in the
quite hard.
moment.
But you basically you work show to show to show, and then it's very difficult to celebrate success as well because it's like we did this event yesterday. It was a huge success. Right, we roll on. We've got a huge 5K we're planning now on Saturday morning. So it's like, okay, that was cool, but then what's next? So it's always quite difficult, and time to reflect on things is often a challenge, I would say. But yeah, in terms of what I'd like a sort of like legacy to be, I just want boxing clubs to be in a much healthier position. I genuinely, I think that I would say that a huge part of my role is amplifying the benefits of boxing through the platform that Matchroom has, and I think that it's difficult to quantify that in some ways. Other than if the government decide to invest more money into Sport England, which then makes its way to amateur to England boxing and to amateur boxing clubs, that's one kind of I guess loose measure. But yeah, I think it would just be if we can change the perception of the sport in many ways. So, something like Ish going into a prison, that may help get boxing into prisons, which sometimes people go, well, why are you going to teach those dangerous people to box? Well, actually, it's a great outlet for any aggression or any negativity in their lives. That's the way I see it. Some people don't see it that way. If we can get more people on my side, then that's going to benefit the sport. The same for boxing clubs in general. A lot of people in positions of influence like MPs. With the APPG, we work with MPs that are all bought in on the benefits of boxing, but not every MP is like that. So if we can get more MPs on my side, not on the other side, then that's going to again help to unlock change. And I think that the work we're doing, the work that Chris Webb has been supporting with in terms of his role as vice chair of that group and Imran Hussain as the chair, they've been two huge drivers with the political work. But I think that would be, it's difficult to measure, but I think that if we can help to change the perception and I guess me be seen as a part of that and driving that work from the kind of Matchroom perspective, that would be the biggest thing. Because the more people that see the benefits of boxing, it's not just two people getting in the ring and fighting or sparring or the contact side of things. Boxing changes people's lives for whether it's crime, social behavior, mental health, physical health, losing weight, all this building confidence and self-esteem. There's so many benefits to the sport, and not everyone realizes that until they've set foot in a boxing gym properly and understood it. So yeah, if we can help do that, then I'll be very, very pleased.
For sure. And you mentioned, back to back to back all the time. Obviously, Christmas to come next week, but after that, are there big things coming in early 2026? What's on the brief horizon you might be able to talk about?
Yeah, so obviously we've got a bunch of shows coming up in the new year, like over Christmas. A lot of I'm fortunate; I get to come home after this one, so I'll get to spend time at Christmas and probably have like a week maybe of thinking slightly less about work. I never really switch off, if I'm honest, but so that'll be good. And then yeah, straight into the new year. Obviously, if in the UK we'll be up in Newcastle, huge fight with Josh Kelly challenging for a world title. Be planning some cool bits around that show. We actually did an event a few years ago in Newcastle, a next gen show. It was Shabazz Masood against Sam Martin, I think it was, and I did a really cool activation with a young kid called TJ McKee. TJ is a kid who was, I think at the time 16, 17 with Street Games, and he was so good at what he did. He wanted to be like a TV presenter or get involved in socials and that kind of thing, content creation. And I let him actually. He did a piece for our YouTube channel, and TJ reached out to me recently and said, "Oh, I see you back in town. Like, we should try and do something." And I'm like, "Yeah, definitely. Like, it'd be really cool to meet up with this young man now. A couple of years on, and just see his development and how we can help young people with the sort of opportunities we can provide them." That kind of started a lot of the conversations that have led to the work we do with Street Games as well. So that'll be really cool to do. And then obviously a bunch of shows in the States. There's always things being announced. I've got big plans for what we're doing in Philadelphia. And then, as I say, who knows? I didn't think I'd be in Ghana right now, so there could be some sort of crazy global shows that we end up doing, and I might end up there too. So exciting times, mate.
Absolutely. So much to come and so much achieved already. So you're doing fantastic work. Thank you very much for your time. And it's been amazing to hear about all the impact that's been had. So thank you very much, Alex.
Very welcome, mate. Thank you for having me on.